Good evening. Welcome to this regular meeting of the Loveland Board of Education. I call this meeting to order and ask for a roll call.
Reverend Eilert,
Here.
Mrs. Jaranek,
Here.
Mrs. Mangan, Dr. Swetchenow,
Here.
Mrs. Washburn.
Here.
Thank you. And I invite everyone to stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty, justice for all. Thank you. Have an agenda that was sent out for everyone. Everyone was able to review it. Any additions to the agenda as presented? Not to have a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
And I have a roll call, please.
Mrs. Jaranek,
Yes.
Mrs. Mangan,
Yes.
Dr. Swetchenow,
Yes.
Mrs. Washburn,
Yes.
Reverend Eilert.
Yes. Thank you. The minutes from our previous meeting are available on board docs and we've had a chance to review those or any additions and corrections to the minutes as presented. I have a motion to accept the minutes
So moved. Second.
and roll call, please.
Mrs. Mangan,
Yes.
Dr. Swetchenow,
Yes.
Mrs. Washburn,
Yes.
Reverend Eilert,
Yes.
Mrs. Jaranek.
Yes.
You. Next item on the agenda is the welcoming of guests. Couple of folks here, but I don't know if we have any official presentations tonight or no. Okay. And then we also then follow that with the hearing of the public.
I have none.
We have none. All right. Moving along. I can flip my page. Move to administrator reports. Those are submitted, contained in board docs. If there's anything else that we need to, no presentations of those tonight. So we have a motion to accept the reports as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
We actually,
We don't have to move.
we don't need
Have do
to
that.
Oh, yeah.
accept them.
Oh,
Yeah.
great.
I do want to say I appreciated the high school's report, giving an update on the cell phone policy and the feedback on that. It's very appreciative to see that, and also appreciative at LACC, seeing the feedback on the way we transitioned students in this year, that's going well. So appreciate kind of circling back on changes that we've made this year.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions from board members about the administrative reports as presented?
With LIS and LMS, I was very happy to see Nick Jackson here. Unfortunately, I was not able to go to the meeting in the auditorium, but I have seen him in previous things that I've done with students. So I'm very pleased that he was here to speak with our families.
Great. That sounds like that was an excellent program. All right, if there's nothing else, we'll move on to the board president report. And one of the things I need for that, my computer is rebooting, so I'm going to ask Lynn to talk about
Oh, okay.
the foundation as we begin the president's report.
Just a quick update on the Loveland Schools Foundation. We've been going out and getting community sponsors and have had a really positive response to the kind of the relaunch of the foundation. We just yesterday let the staff know that staff grant applications are now open. And we really we wanted to make sure folks understand that it's any staff member can apply for a grant. Historically, it's been focused on teachers, but our counselors are, anybody that wants to apply can apply for those staff grants, and they're due by Thursday, October 3rd. So if you have any questions, but really want to encourage folks to apply for those. So excited about that and the work that's happening there.
Great, thank you. I also have a report from Kathy Lorenz on Great Oaks. At the September 11th meeting of the Great Oaks Board, College Credit Plus enrollment was reviewed along with the list of the Ohio Recognized Industry Credential List. The board voted to solicit statements from architectural firms to develop a new master renovation an expansion plan, having just completed the current plan for facilities. That is all that we have for report from Great Oaks for this month. Then I also just wanted to share something. I don't usually make a lot of statements as a part of this report, but I wanted to say something as we begin another school year, and we saw once again a school shooting to begin the school year in Georgia. And I wanted to begin by thanking Mr. Broadwater for the message that he sent out to all of our families, outlining how seriously we take the safety of our children here in the district. I want to thank Rich Bryant, Chief Gabrielson, all of our SROs for the work that they do on safety plans and being present each day in our buildings to keep our children safe. The safety of our children should always be at the forefront of our minds, and I believe that within our community it is so, which is why I grow increasingly frustrated by the lack of will from our state and national leaders to do better for the safety of our children. This most recent shooting in Georgia exemplified so much of what we're doing right and what continues to be a failure of will to accomplish. The story of the shooter in Georgia is a tragic one. In so many ways, we saw the systems working. A kid with troubled home life, struggling with mental health issues, was seen by school officials, addressed by the community. He had mental health services. Law enforcement had notified the family and done an investigation. Others tried to intervene at the last second when an incident seemed likely, and brave SRO officers made sure that more lives were not lost. Yet still, 4 more families lost loved ones that day, and another school full of students was traumatized for life. There are certainly lessons to be learned and applied from this incident, as there always are, and I want us to continue to use the resources that we have and explore new ones to try to identify kids that need help, and by all means instill in our children the principle that if you see something, say something. Everything that we do is important, but there is nothing more important that we can do than to keep these kids from having access to weapons of war in the first place. We have so many issues to address in reducing gun violence in homes and communities, the sum of which is that firearms continue to be the #1 killer of our children in this country. It'll take a multi-pronged response to address the greater issues, but it's time for leaders to stop wringing their hands and acting like there's nothing that we can do. We can't just accept that this is just how it is. And so we have to start somewhere, and I think that begins in the place that should clearly be the safest place for our children, in our schools. In our schools, there are many different things to address, but the recent common denominator that keeps coming up in mass shooting after mass shooting is assault rifles that are designed to kill and to kill quickly. It's beyond time for us to demand that our leaders do more and do better to protect the children of our community and our nation. The only nation where these issues are present with such frequency, with such lethality, and with such a proliferation of access to the weapons that do it. So I just felt like it was important to say something about what continues to happen far too often in our country. And hopefully someday soon, we will get off of the starting line and begin to do something to reduce the amount of violence that's happening across our nation and in our schools. All right, that concludes my president's report.
If I were to just jump in here, I would say thank you for the words, and first and foremost, thoughts and prayers go out to those students, staff, the community down in Georgia. I can tell you it's been since the incident, we have met many times as a leadership team to talk through. Andrew Setters today put a timeline of the events that happened. We believe there is one little action step we think we learned from, and so we'll continue to do that. But we met with Sean Riley from Hamilton County ESC. He's the Director of Safety for Hamilton County. He came over last week and we went through all of that. Suffice it to say, it's obviously the biggest worry we have. It's what we spend a lot of time on. There's a lot of planning that goes on with Dr. Puerta, Rich Bryant, and the rest of the team that obviously we don't want to make too public, but we do think about it every single day. And it is something that we will continue to focus on. But thank you for the words.
Thank you. All right, so next on the agenda, are our student representative reports. And we have our new representatives with us today. What a nice long stretch of students we have here. And so we're glad that all of you are here with us tonight and look forward to your reports.
Hello, everyone. My name is CJ Margraf, and I am reporting on LPS and LES. So we'll start this report with some ongoing building and department projects. Teachers are beginning their beginning of the year assessments for students. This helps them develop intervention plans and really plan out the school year from a learning perspective. LPS and LES Parent Information Night was very well attended, so shout out to all of our parents there. LPS started the Tiger Ticket PBIS system to promote their core values, which we also have at the high school: care, respect, and responsibility. And finally, both schools have completed the Reading Title I processes a week ahead of schedule to determine our reading plans for the school year. Next, we have a professional development update. Both schools have planned staff department meetings to discuss building goals as well as department goals. Our teachers are implementing the iReady program, which is for reading and mathematics, to get a baseline and also develop personal plans. That's one of the newest things that I've learned is there's personal plans for each student. It's very individualized. And our teachers and administrators have been attending roundtables. Specifically, Ms. Foreign and Mr. Fancher have attended principal roundtables with other principals in the tri-state area. Some important upcoming dates: October 10th is the last day of the fourth quarter. It's going by very quick. November 4th is our first night of parent-teacher conferences. And finally, November 25th is Thanksgiving break. So we're getting closer. And then before I close, I'd like to add a student's perspective. So this past week, myself and 4 other students from Tigers Incorporated at the high school were able to take a trip down to the middle school here. We actually stopped by Mr. Krosky's room, and we took a second to speak to the kids about leadership. And I just wanted to say how impressed I was with the students' attentiveness and how quickly they were able to pick up what we were talking to them. We specifically touched on what it means to be a leader, how you need to be responsible, you need to delegate roles to everybody else, and most importantly, you need to communicate. That's one of the things that I noticed is that kids need to communicate better, whether that's with other kids or other adults. So we led these kids through some series of activities. One kid actually quoted Top Gun. So I was very impressed with the knowledge of these kids. But overall, it was just great for the high school kids to be able to travel down to the middle school and develop inter-school relationships. I think that's one of the special things we have at Loveland. And it's great to see that the teachers are preparing these kids for high school in the right ways. So thank you.
Hi, I'm Lily Spada, and I'm here reporting on the Loveland Early Childhood Center. LACC has crossed the first half of quarter one swinging. Over at the Early Childhood Center, they're working on beginning the year assessments to be able to place their kids where they need to be able to get the most help. They're compiling this data to link students with targets and monitoring plans. One of the best ways to see that is through reading, where many students are excelling and have constant improvement plans set for them to grow into. Over at the Early Childhood Center, they also held parent-teacher conferences that went very smoothly. The adjustment to full-day kindergarten is going well, and teachers and parents are able to have open communications about what's needed for their kids. There are some accomplishments I'd like to mention as well. These kids are already doing so many great things so early on in their careers, and a lot of that is thanks to the teachers. The LACC preschool team received a gold star per state guidelines for their excellent teaching environment. If you know anything about these state regulations, that's super tedious to achieve, so big congratulations to them. LACC has a lot of new staff in their journey to help each and every one of their students succeed. And new work done with the Ohio Department of Education and Workforce, as well as the hours needed to meet required PD hours for both new and old teachers, are underway as we speak. Some of the things they bring from this are new programs, such as iReady, a math program, which has been helpful in understanding what these kids need to advance in their education and meet state requirements. Finally, one of the most important items coming up is this homecoming parade this Thursday, which will feature all the schools across Loveland and their various sports and leisure activities. If you can attend, it's such a great time for all the schools. Thank you.
I am Ronan Wolfer, and I'll be presenting the LMS and LIS board report. The first point is that there have been many ongoing building and department projects, including staff and student safety, thanks to Rich Bryant, map testing, which has been completed for reading and math for all intermediate and middle school students, along with the implementation of iReady. There's LMS Hope Week from September 23rd to the 27th, where they will take part and recognize September as Suicide Prevention Awareness Month. They'll also be visited by Brandon Sejo, a former WLWT sports reporter known for his podcast, The Mental Game, on which he speaks about discussing mental health strategies. Thanks to the LMS Hope Squad students, Mrs. Pecksock, Tori Morrison, and the Ben Morrison Memorial Fund for their leadership and support. There was also the Tiger Up presentations from Nick Jackson, where he spoke about applying the core values, care, respect, and responsibility to accomplish goals. Thanks to the Mint PTSA for giving everyone this opportunity. There was also a community outing in which a few fifth grade classes visited the supporting living facility Magnolia Springs and interviewed a few of the residents to apply what they learned from the novel Restart. Some of the student and staff accomplishments that have been recognized are, in regards to the positive behavior and intervention support, are the Tiger Up Awards, the Tiger Up Staff Awards, and they've started implementing the Tiger Up store where they can trade in tickets every Tuesday to reward good behavior. Some of the LIS students have been nominated for the Positively Proud write-ups, in which they get positive office referrals, and there have been staff shout-outs as well in LIS. And the athletics activities include many clubs in LMS, and in LIS, there are also many clubs led by the teachers. And a few reminders are that this week is homecoming week, and the LMS Student Teacher Conferences will be open to families on October 8th and October 17th from 4 to 7:30. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Ellie Hilliker, and I do our high school board reports. So as the school year kicks off, our Link Crew welcomed the freshmen with orientation, and Link Crew focuses on providing friendly faces to help freshmen around the school and make them feel welcome in their new environment. I was really lucky because I got to do Link Crew, and my partner and I did a fun little Western theme, and it was really fun. We all dressed up. We had a good time. I don't know about the freshmen, but I think they tried. I feel kind of bad. Shortly after orientation, Mr. Spencer announced our new cell phone policy for the high school. As we know, the state asked schools to put one in place following the research done at schools that were using policies. And although it's controversial, I believe that our students are benefiting more from physical conversations. And I think like when you put that phone away and you talk to each other, people are getting out books instead of getting out their phones and scrolling on social media. I think kindness has gone up, which was definitely something that has been lacking with the grow in social media, in my opinion. And on top of this, in exciting news, LHS is very proud to say that Mackenzie Liu and Jamie Brown have been named as semifinalists for the National Merit Scholarship Program. This honor is based on junior year SAT scores, and only around 16,000 students in the nation are selected as semifinalists, which is less than 1% of high schools that are sending them. And congratulations to them. The high school is very proud of their accomplishments. Another exciting news, happy homecoming week, as we've all said. This week is full of exciting activities led by our student council. We had lawn painting, Name That Tune, and soon we'll be playing Family Feud at lunch. And of course, our traditional powder puff game, homecoming parade, and pep rally will hype us all up for the game on Friday. And the dance on Saturday, which is a 70s disco theme since it's on the 21st night of September. And if no one gets that in here, that's disappointing. Yeah, thank goodness. The first full month of the school year has already been so successful, and we are so excited to see what lies ahead of us.
Thank you.
I just want to say really quick, Ronan, it's nice to know, put your face because I see your name at the top of the cross-country results every week. So it's really nice to know your face. So, yeah.
All right, thank you, students, for great reports as always. We turn now our attention to 3.1, the superintendent.
The
Thank
four
you,
of you
Steve.
did a fantastic job, by the way. I'm starting to think the superintendent update should probably be presented by the four of you.
Yeah.
If I can get the board to okay that, we'll but.
Totally fine.
Okay, all right, we'll let you go. All right. They did a fantastic job. I'll hit on a couple things that were said already. Nick Jackson, I did have the ability to attend the evening that Ms. Jernick was talking about. Just a great message, and we had parents there that I think benefited from it. I know they did, but knowing that Nick is a graduate of Loveland, I think it makes it more particular towards Loveland. So it was a great evening, and I appreciate the Mint helping us out to bring him in. The transition days at LECC, we did have a survey go out, and I know the staff really appreciated it. They felt like it actually put them ahead of schedule simply because they were able to give more individual attention, being able to talk to some of the teachers at LECC. I know they appreciated it, and it's something I think we would like to continue. The cell phone policy that Ellie touched base on, I will tell the board, obviously, we're always going to monitor as it's a new change. I believe it is going pretty well. I had a teacher I talked to the other day who said he had forgotten what it was like when the end of the period where kids actually talk to themselves instead of being on their phone. And so I think our students are starting to see that, yeah, it could be a little different too. So I appreciate the board's support on that, and we'll continue to monitor and see if we can make it a little bit better. And I'm going to give you a little story from this morning. I got a text from an individual that lives in Loveland that I know works downtown. They were on their drive downtown, and they were stuck behind bus number 33, which is driven by Andrea Holbrook. And they said the young student went running on the bus and gave the bus driver the biggest hug they've ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
So when you talk about what makes a difference, that's what makes a difference. So, pretty cool story. So I am going to move on to our community advisory team. We are going to have our first meeting tomorrow night. We have over 80 community members volunteering to be a part of the community advisory team. Anyone who applied was accepted. We put it out in our newsletters. So anybody that would have liked to have participated, we have accepted, similar to what we did with our strategic vision, where anybody could participate. We have 4 meetings planned during this school year. The discussions are going to be around student success, which is tomorrow evening. School finance is the second one. Learning pathways is the third, and then facilities will be the fourth in the spring. So we're going to have, it really mirrors what our strategic vision is and what we're trying to do. We want to get input from our community to see how we continue to move forward. And we will have, so the Board of Education is aware, we will have a spokesperson or a few spokespeople to report out to all of you so that you know what is being discussed. We will make sure we put a survey out the following day after the meeting so that we can get a summary of what other people are thinking, what the members of the CAT team are thinking. Town halls we have coming. The first one is October 16th at 6:30, and that's going to be piggyback on the second CAT team meeting. It's going to be at the Loveland Intermediate Middle School Media Center. Anybody is welcome. And the topic will be school finance. Mr. SB will dazzle us with his school finance knowledge. Dazzle. All right. Moving on.
He looks dazzling now, doesn't he?
You have to be beat up.
With the new haircut, yeah. I don't know if the board or anybody's heard, but we got 5 stars this year. And yeah, we did. Our 5 stars in every category. There was only one of 18 districts in the entire state of Ohio that did that. There are about 608 or 9, depending on what report you look at. So I thought we would hit that one more time. We can never say it enough, but I gave you the story about the bus driver simply because that's how you do that. It's everybody caring about kids. It's not necessarily the assessments until our students are taken care of by our staff and then they're ready for the assessment. So we put an email out to the staff so that everybody knows it's not about the report card or the assessments. It's about taking care of kids every day. But that's the byproduct of it. And we're pretty darn proud of what we've done. So some of the highlights that I have up there on the next page is only 68 districts in Ohio earned an overall rating of 5 stars. Some of those would be, you can receive 5 stars, but get a 4-star in one of the 5 categories. So 68 districts earned a rating of 5. Only 10 districts in Southwest Ohio, which is the 4 counties we have listed there, earned an overall rating of 5 stars. And then the next slide, just so everybody is aware, report cards have 5 component areas: achievement, progress, gap closing, graduation, and early literacy, which is the portion of the report card that we were able to increase our scores with, and we're very proud of that and appreciative of the board allowing us to bolster our reading program with reading intervention specialists. So districts can earn up to 5 stars in each category, which contributes to the overall rating. And the next page, I've got the highlights in there. Loveland component ratings, we got 5 stars in achievement, progress, gap closing, graduation, early literacy for the 5 stars in every category. And the next slide, with that, only 2 districts in Southwest Ohio earned 5 stars in every category. That would be Loveland and Madeira. And only 18 of 607 public school districts in Ohio earned 5 stars in every category. I would also even let you know that when you get into larger districts, 4,000 students or more, we were 5th in the state. And so that speaks volumes for, I would describe Loveland as a small, big district. I feel the way we are set up, we all know each other. We know the staff works hard, and it's just an awesome community feel in the district and in the community. And so we are in the top 3% of Ohio public school districts. And the next slide, what I wanted to do was compare the 18 5-star districts where they receive 5 stars in every category. We are looking at the per pupil expenditures. If you look at where Loveland is 17th out of 18th on how much we spend per student. And I don't think that should go unrecognized what our staff does and how hard they work with something like that. If you notice, Orange City up in Cleveland spends about $27,000 per student. We are at $14,000 per student, and we're still 5 stars across the board. So when you talk about the community getting a bang for their buck, I think it's pretty good bang for your buck with the educational system we have. How we compare among those 18, when you look at student to classroom teacher ratio, you will see that out of the 18, we are at the bottom when it comes to student to teacher ratio, which is why our staff is working very, very hard. The grade banding helps quite a bit. But when you look at student to classroom teacher ratio, Loveland, we can say we keep an eye on our FTEs, right, Garth? We keep an eye on our FTEs and make sure we're providing what we need for the classroom. I think our classroom sizes are appropriate, but we also make sure we monitor that each and every year as we do our staffing. So the last slide we have, how do we compare among all Ohio public school districts? 62% of public school districts in Ohio spend more money per pupil than Loveland City Schools. 97% of public school districts in Ohio have more classroom teachers per student than Loveland City Schools. And 96% of public school districts in Ohio have more administrator support per student than Loveland. And so again, I think you can see the message is we have people that are working very, very hard, doing a great job, and it's showing in what we do. And again, the report card's not the only measure, but it's a pretty good measure to say we're doing pretty well. So with that ends the superintendent report. If you have any questions, be happy to answer.
I don't have a question. I just want to commend the staff on all of their hard work that they put into helping the district achieve the 5-star rating. It's pretty awesome. And it is certainly recognized by us and the community, and it shows in our kids. So
I appreciate it.
I was just gonna say, Lynn and I were at the meeting talking about the agenda and looking at some of this. Lynn asked the question, are there other metrics that we can look at? Because, when we're at 5 stars, we've achieved a lot. And so, how do we even continue to think about where are there places to improvement? It says a lot about our district that we have to look to other measures of success because we've kind of topped out at this one measurement, which is such a great thing. And so it's a great testament, but also that the staff continues to be responsive to saying, yeah, let's look at where are those places where we can continue to improve? Where are the opportunities? How do those continue to come forward, and where are places that we can learn from to continue to grow? I think is such an important thing that you all are doing every day as well. And so commend you for continuing to push forward into that, whatever that next thing is, as we try to think about.
Appreciate it. I think I would be remiss if I didn't say thanks to the board for allowing us to, we moved some administrative positions around to where the next piece of the report card is going to be the college career, the military, the workforce. We've already got, Mr. Lee is digging into that, but they're using last year's measures and they don't really have all the metrics out as the state of Ohio tends to do sometimes. But looking at that, I think we're forward looking into what does that mean at the end of the day. Whether it's a 4, a 5, a 3, or a 2, are we doing everything we can for our kids? Are we taking care of our students? And I know the college career, Dr. Puerta, Brian Lee, and Drew Smithfield, all of our counselors work very, very hard to take care of our kids. We have a lot of students out on internships, probably more than most districts, I would imagine. So I think we'll be in pretty good shape there too.
Yeah, I'll just chime in. I think it's absolutely tremendous results, and I think, just making sure we never take it for granted, the success. And I think having 4 kids that have graduated from here and taken, 4 with very different interests, it's always interesting to me when they're in their freshman year in that first month and they come back and say, wow, I didn't realize I was more prepared than I thought I would be for this. Or so, when they get to the end of their journey, I think it's really cool. But I love the focus on the foundation and the investment we've made to make sure that we've got, that the early intervention for reading, that getting that to a 5 is just tremendous. So super proud of the work of all the staff and our students on getting that to that perfect 5. So thank you.
And that ultimately shows how much it makes a difference when you have a staff in all areas of your buildings that truly care. Like you said, with the bus driver getting a big hug in the morning, because when that difference is made, you'll see that change in the students and how much they grow. So I appreciate all the caring and supportiveness of all our staff here in this district.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll just chime in because I know how hard you've worked at this and all of the rest of the administration has. I really admire the fact that when we had this conversation last year and said, wait, why aren't we as perfect as we should be, that we took the time and looked at our processes and figured out how to make this better for the kids. Which you all did admirably. And looking forward to next year, how can we make sure that we anticipate on the other side of it, not the early literacy side, but the high school and career readiness side that comes up next? You've been spectacular at that, as you just reflected. But from the financial side, I'd want to say the last slide you did was the one that's the most striking to me. We are well below the average cost for districts in Ohio. We are at the very tip top of the number of students per teacher. We're the very tip top on the least number of administrators per student. To me, I can't see how anybody could possibly complain about how well you're running the district. So thanks.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, everyone. If there are no other questions for Mr. Broadwater about the superintendent's report, we move on to item number 3.2, the first reading of the cash balance policy.
Yeah, I'm happy to talk about this a little bit. OSBA that governs our policies had put out several bulletins. One of the latest bulletins suggested that the district adopt a cash balance policy. A couple of years ago with my professional organization, I served on the committee that wrote a white paper about cash balance policies. And so we have samples, and I've brought forth this cash policy for your, to look at this evening. When we look at this specific cash balance policy, it looks at a 90-day cash balance. And if at any point during the 5-year forecast, we were to drop below a 90-day cash balance, I would have to report to the board. And then Mr. Broadwater and I would have to bring a plan to the board on how to alleviate or essentially get us above 90 cash days. There's also a caveat that if we were to get above 150 days, we may, we always say may and shall, we may bring a plan to kind of bolster the strategic vision and bring that to you as the board for your consideration. And that was the word I was looking for earlier, consideration. So fun times. But so that's essentially what this is. This is the first reading for you to consider.
And John, just to review, and I know we've talked about this a lot in the past, but it's been a little bit. When, do you know the last time we were close to 90 days on a 5-year report?
Not offhand, but it is in the assumptions. I just don't have that memorized with me right now, but I'd be happy to bring that to you next month.
Part of it is that in my estimation of how it goes, at the end of a 5-year plan without a levy intact, we get closer and closer to that number.
Correct.
You've always done, and Kevin, Holly, and Rob have always done a great job of managing that. But I think this is a great move towards forcing us to be accountable both in our accounting, forecasting, and balances to make sure that we're maintaining the cash needed to run the district successfully.
Absolutely. It's very forward thinking. So if you're looking at year 4 or 5, it at least gets that conversation going on how are we going to alleviate that issue.
And I think it just speaks to the no surprises. So there's no, if it's showing something that we're getting into that 90 days, 3, 4, 5 years out, just have the conversation and rather than there be surprises down the road. So
Absolutely.
I appreciate that kind of method of leading.
All right, so this is the first reading of this policy. It'll come back before us. You've got the actual language there in board docs. If you have any further questions, comments, suggestions for that, please direct those to Mr. Espy before our next meeting where we'll have it then for adoption at our next. All right. No further questions about that, then let's move on to our next item. Which is, gets us into the board resolutions. Number 4.1, this is approval of a second reading of the student engagement seal, work-based learning. So we had a first reading of that at the last meeting. So it comes before us now for a vote. Are there any further questions about that policy as presented and discussed at our last meeting?
I don't have any questions, but I do want to say that this is very exciting to add to our student engagement seal. I got the opportunity for where I work at Winton Woods to be the representative for that school, but also meet a lot of different superintendents and teachers. And of course, Loveland was there with the upcoming programs that we're going to be able to provide to our students. In a sense, it's like a bank of opportunities for teachers to have guest speakers come along through the Linked Up Connect program, but also offer a variety of internship programs, which will continue to add growth to our students and their abilities to go out and learn new things. So I love that this is going to be a part of our student engagements.
Thank you. Thanks for that input. All right, then we have a motion to approve the second reading and adoption of this policy for the student engagement seal, work-based learning.
So moved. I'll second.
We have roll call, please.
Dr. Swetchenow,
Yes.
Mrs. Washburn,
Yes.
Reverend Eilert,
Yes,
Mrs. Jernick,
Yes.
Mrs. Mangan.
Yes.
thank you. All right, then moving on to HR. Mr. Collier's coming forward here, to present a few items to us as well.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks for having me tonight. First off, before we get started, I want to make sure to thank Jamie and Jake and Greg for being here today. And thank you not only for being here and showing support, but also for what Mr. Broadwater talked about with our 5-star rating, and your guys' hard work does not go unrecognized. So thank you for everything that you do, and all of our staff for the things that they do. But thank you for being such strong leadership. We appreciate it.
Woohoo.
Woohoo, that's right. I have a number of things, board, I have a number of things here tonight for you guys to consider. The first being more of the traditional agenda that we would have on a monthly basis. There are 5 different items that since the first time that you guys saw this report that have been added, those are in yellow. So if there's any particular questions about any of those 5 items, of course, I would be fine with giving you some more information if you need any info on those items. Does anybody have any questions about those? All right. Also, in addition to that, earlier, the high school students were talking about that there were many different clubs that teachers offer after school. You will see on the agenda here that although the money amount for each individual teacher that might have a different club after school, there are lots and lots of different opportunities for our kids. I think it's one of those things that which, kids being involved in school, but not necessarily something that's within the school day, but also an extension of the school day is really important. And we're really glad to be able to offer these opportunities. And even though the money amount isn't very large for each teacher, we do want to recognize and thank them for their hard work for those pieces. Any other questions? I have other items. I don't know if we want to vote on this, then move to the next one. or
Yeah,
how
do you want to just real quick, just give a little background on the new thing that Kelly Partridge is doing, the Career Connection Teacher Liaison, just we're talking about some of those pieces. It's obviously a new thing and
Yeah.
what that's going to enable us to do.
So Hamilton County ESC basically is providing the funds for this. And it's for someone to kind of like be our leader for our school district to work with other leaders across the county. And really, it's all around making sure that everybody's work is kind of like working together. Because, individual districts working on their own, of course, is great. But multiple districts kind of putting their ideas and heads together can open up much, additional opportunities for our kids. So that's what that's about. The important piece that I wanted to list it in an important piece, not the important piece, is that isn't, that money isn't coming, that's not, we're getting money from the county for that. And we're glad to have somebody like Kelly representing us. I'm sure all of you have probably met Kelly before. She is a go-getter, represents our district well. And she'll be bringing lots of different opportunities and exciting things for our district, being a leader of our group and working with other leaders across the county.
We might even say it'd be worth $1,200 for own dollars to spend, but isn't it great that we? don't have
Yes,
to spend?
absolutely.
That ties in with what I was talking about, with the linked up connect and opportunities for students.
Excellent. All right, excellent. Anything else? Any other questions for Garth on 5.1?
There's an additional bus driver. Hip, hip, hooray. I had to draw some attention to it.
What we're voting on at the very bottom, it says separate recommendations. I understand why we're doing that. But does that mean that that's not, I assume that means that's not part of the vote there, but it's on
Yes,
that page.
I'm hoping that on the one that's not the notes, that piece is removed from the bottom and that we should be voting on that next, or do I not have it that way?
I'm looking at the notes.
You're looking
I
at the
have to
notes, okay,
check.
yeah.
Sorry.
So that was just to kind of make sure that you guys knew why there was going to be a 5.2.
Gotcha. Yeah,
Gotcha,
you're right.
okay, yep,
Sorry about that.
no problem.
All right, we need a motion for 5.1.
So moved.
Second.
Oh, go.
Who was the second?
Christina.
Okay.
Sorry.
And can we have a roll call, please?
Mrs. Washburn,
Yes.
Reverend Eilert,
Yes.
Mrs. Jarenick,
Yes.
Mrs. Mankin,
Yes.
Dr. Switchnow.
Yes.
Okay, which leads us into 5.2. I wanted to give Reverend Eilert an opportunity to be able to vote on all the other items on the agenda, because this particular item, he is not going to be able to vote for. That's the reason for the separation. So for that supplemental position. So if anybody has any questions about that, now would be the appropriate time.
You have a motion then to approve 5.2?
So moved.
And second. Second, sorry.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Jarnick,
Yes.
Mrs. Mengen,
Yes.
Dr. Swetchinow.
Yes.
Mrs. Washburn.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, great, thank you. 5.3, this is making sure we've talked about this and it's been in my report, but I'm officially bringing this to the board. This is a kindergarten teacher who was basically saying, hey, if there is an opportunity to reduce, if the kindergarten numbers turn out that way, I would be willing to do it. This is our agreement that we have with the association that our typical reduction in force rules weren't coming into play here, and that this was a voluntary reduction in the stipulations about her returning to full-time status at the beginning of next year. So if you guys have any, I think you guys already know about that, but if you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
Makes sense to everyone?
Yep.
All right, do we have a motion then to approve this voluntary reduction in force agreements?
So moved.
Second.
And roll call, please.
Mrs. Jarnick,
Yes.
Mrs. Mengen,
Yes.
Dr. Swetchinow,
Yes.
Mrs. Washburn,
Yes.
Reverend Eilert.
Yes.
All right, so 5.4 is for us to take a look at some overnight trips. We have a marching band trip that's listed here. If you guys recall that there were 3 items that were listed here before, 2 of them have been removed. One of them, we actually already had it on the agenda before, which is unlike us having our
Right.
trips in advance. And the other one, it is something that we almost always qualify for, but the group hasn't actually qualified for the trip yet. So we're not going to count our eggs before they hatch. So I pulled that one off as well. And I'm assuming that that one is going to happen, but we will wait to see to make sure. So it's just really just this one trip here for the marching band.
Great. We do appreciate you bringing this item before the trip is coming.
Yes. Yeah, we're gonna try hard to make sure they're there before. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. Excellent. All right. Do we have a motion to approve this trip?
So moved. Second.
And roll call, please.
Mrs. Mengen,
Yes.
Dr. Swetchinow,
Yes.
Mrs. Washburn.
Yes.
Reverend Eilert,
Yes.
Mrs. Jarnick.
Yes.
All right, last but not least, a lot of stuff tonight, I apologize. This last piece is, there was a supplemental review committee group that meets 4 times a year. This is the group that I'm the chair of, but there are also 3 administrators and then 3 LEA representatives in that meeting. Basically, what this group is for is if in between negotiating times, if there is anything that has to do with supplemental contracts, this group hears and discusses and makes recommendations to me as the chair, and then in turn, me as the chair recommending to Mr. Broadwater and the board. There are, just so you guys know, there's always lots of discussion and there's lots of items that come to this group. A very few amount of them actually end up coming to the board. So what I want to make sure that I want to make sure that a misnomer would be, well, anytime something gets brought up, it instantly comes here to be approved. There were a number of topics that we removed that are not open for discussion, some that we're continuing to talk about with the group, and we just have the recommendations that you see here, which is moving 2 positions up 1 tier. So I put some information in the notes section, but I'd be glad to answer any questions.
All right, any additional questions about that? We have a motion to approve this recommendation from the supplemental committee.
So moved. Second.
Roll call, please.
Dr. Swetchinow,
Yes.
Mrs. Washburn,
Yes.
Reverend Eilert,
Yes.
Mrs. Jarnick,
Yes.
Mrs. Mengen.
Yes.
All right,
you.
and before I step away, I just want to make sure to let all of you know that the FTE chart is attached, like always, Mr. Broadwater. And of course, the only change for this month is the additional transportation position, the bus driver spot. So if anybody is wondering and wants to check out the FTE chart for this month, it's attached in board docs. All right, great, thank you.
Thank you. All right. Very succinct report. We'll review the timing that compared to the treasurer's following the meeting. Mr. Espy.
Thank you, President Eilert, members of the board. I'll try to make this succinct and, chock full of information. So I appreciate you entertaining this report tonight. August monthly analysis, we're through 2 months of the fiscal year, 16.67% to be exact. We are looking at a positive impact on our cash balance equal to 1.8% of the forecasted expenditures. When we dig into expenditures, we're essentially our purchase services are coming in below the forecast, albeit at 0.37%. So it is below. I'm always going to like it when the expenditures come in below, but it is fairly close in the grand scheme of things. When we look at the revenues, the 1.4% positive variance to forecasted revenues, this is essentially due to the sinking fund interest and restricted state revenues, primarily the sinking fund interest that we spoke about at last board meeting. We have interest income of $85,794.54 with a fiscal year to date of $169,410.68. Here you're going to see the Red Tree investment report that we get every month. You'll now start to see that STAR this year is performing at lower interest rates than it was prior. This leads to a change that we've implemented in our investment practice. So we're essentially going to be keeping about 2 months of operating in STAR. So 2 months of operating expenses on average in STAR, and then we're going to move the rest to commercial paper to try to make sure we get ahead of the falling interest rates. So continuing to monitor this, speaking with our investment advisor multiple times a week and just making sure we're on the same page with this. I also wanted to point out that in commercial paper, you'll see that there's no income coming in. It's because it's laddered to come in November, December, in January. So we'll start to see that income come in the next few months. Some ongoing projects. We're working on a project called Total Pay that allows us to essentially get paid for paying our bills. And we're working on expanding that out. It's going to work with checks. It's also going to work with virtual payment cards and ACH payments. We've also continued to roll out electronic timesheets. You can see all the individuals that we've gotten to thus far. We're going to next be tackling the drivers in our transportation department. So we'll continue to look at that in the next few months. It's going to be a little bit more of a challenge than some of the others, but it's just due to just the nature of their work. So, and then moving on to number 3, we're continuing to just create standards, standard operating procedures and document those. Positive pay is enabled now with our bank, so that's protecting any check that we put out into the world. We make sure that that number is sent to the bank with the amount and to the actual vendor. And then finally, I'm really excited to get working on grant writing. We're going to be engaging with a grant writer. I've been soliciting some information from several grant writers around the country on, really what's going to work best for us here in Loveland to provide additional sources of revenue. And if you will indulge me to take my treasurer hat off for one moment and put my dad hat on, I have 2 very different little girls at home, and they do not agree on many things right now. That 4-year age gap is tough sometimes, but I will say they love coming to school, and they love the Loveland community, and they love the Loveland school community. And I want to thank everyone that's a part of that. It's a special thing as a parent when your kids like going to school. So thank you for everyone that makes that happen.
Thank you. Questions on this very succinct report from Mr. Espy?
I thought it went well.
Read yourself.
Yeah, I can.
I don't think it works that.
All right, there are no additional questions, and we have at least one action item here, 6.2, the permanent appropriations certificate of available balances.
Can we get a motion and a second for 6.1?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. Thank you.
Second.
All right, we have a roll call to approve the financial reports for August 2024.
Mrs. Washburn?
Yes.
Reverend Eilert?
Yes,
Mrs. Jernick?
Yes.
Mrs. Mangan?
Yes.
Dr. Swetchenow?
Yes.
just enjoyed the report so much. I forgot to even. All right, so moving on to 6.2.
Yes, so this is going to be our permanent appropriations. They're due this month. So it's essentially all of the thousands of budget codes we have rolled up into a fund level. So by fund level, what we plan to spend. That's also the certificate of available balances is what we have to start out with in terms of our starting balance and what we plan to bring in. And so this really touches both the budgetary side and the revenue side.
All right, any other questions for Mr. Espy about the resolution that's before you? Lots of content in the board docs support that. We have a motion then to approve to accept the resolution for the permanent appropriations and certificate of available balances.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Reverend Eilert?
Yes.
Mrs. Jernick?
Yes.
Mrs. Mangan?
Yes.
Dr. Swetchenow?
Yes.
Mrs. Washburn?
Yes.
Thank you. We have one donation to receive. Another donation to the Feed the Kids Fund from the Watts family. We were asking, did you have a chance to look up how much they have given? But
Not yet, but they've definitely been mainstays in this donation area and on the agenda. So we do thank them very much.
we have a motion to accept the donation from the Watts family.
So moved, gladly.
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Jernick?
Yes.
Mrs. Mangan?
Yes.
Dr. Swetchenow?
Yes.
Mrs. Washburn?
Yes.
Reverend Eilert?
Yes. And then finally, 6.4, the contract that Mr. Espy was referring to earlier for total pay. Anything else for us to know about that?
No, it's just, I would like to have the board approve this because it's going to be the main way that we pay our vendors.
Excellent. Great tool. We have a motion to approve the contract as presented.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
roll call, please.
Mrs. Mangan?
Yes.
Dr. Swetchenow?
Yes.
Mrs. Washburn?
Yes.
Reverend Eilert?
Yes.
Mrs. Jernick?
Yes.
All right. That concludes our business for this evening, and we will entertain a motion to adjourn at 6:58. Their motion,
So moved.
So moved.
second. Second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Meeting adjourned at 6:58.
Nice.